He worked overtime for months, skipped every indulgence, and finally bought the one thing he truly wanted: a PlayStation 5. But when his neighbor knocked on his door, with entitlement in her eyes and accusations on her lips, what started as a small win turned into a neighborhood scandal. This is the story of how one man stood his ground and what it cost him to keep what was already his. Derek Washington never asked for much. As a full-time respiratory therapist, he worked 12-hour night shifts, held patients' hands in their final moments, and split his earnings between rent, utilities, and his younger sister's college tuition. The man knew sacrifice. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have predicted, was that a PlayStation 5 would trigger the ugliest side of his neighborhood. After months of overtime and careful budgeting, Derek finally bought the console. It was more than a piece of tech. It was proof that he could still dream for himself. He hadn't even unboxed it when she showed up. "Afternoon, Derek," said Mrs. Patson, his elderly neighbor with a reputation for gossip and passive-aggressive notes. "My Trevor's been trying to get one of those." She pointed at the box under his arm. Her son, Trevor, a 31-year-old man who spent his days in stained sweatpants and slippers, stood behind her. Expression unreadable. "That right," Derek said, trying to be polite. "He's been saving for months," she added. It'd mean a lot if someone in the community helped out. Derek hesitated. "You're asking me to give him my PS5. It's just a gesture," she replied, smiling tightly. "You live alone. You don't need it." Trevor looked at the ground, then shrugged, like this wasn't his idea. "Sorry," Derek said, calm but firm. "I bought this for myself." Her smile vanished. "Well, isn't that convenient? You get one the day Trevor's order vanishes from the tracking system." "What are the odds?" Derek blinked. "Are you suggesting I stole it?" She didn't answer, just turned and walked off with Trevor trailing behind. That evening, Derek found a note in his mailbox, scrawled in uneven handwriting. "Thieves don't belong in our community." He didn't sleep much that night, but not from guilt, just frustration. He'd worked for everything he had. He wouldn't let some entitled neighbor rewrite that. The next day, a patrol car pulled up outside his driveway. Officer Collins stepped out, familiar and slightly embarrassed. "Hey, Derek, we got a complaint. Possible stolen delivery. Your address came up." Derek raised an eyebrow. "Patson." "Yep," the officer sighed. "She's made, similar calls before." Derek showed him the receipt, verified shipping records. Collins reviewed them silently, then nodded. "You're good." "Sorry for the trouble," Derek asked. "Is this gonna go on a report?" "No record," Collins assured. "Unofficial. But between us, you might want to document anything strange from here on out." The following day, flyers appeared, printed in black and white. Poor resolution. "Beware, PS5 thief on this block." And beneath it, an image of Derek, caught from a distance, holding the console box. A photo taken without his knowledge. The rumor spread like smoke in a dry forest. Neighbors stopped making eye contact. Kids stopped waving. Derek went from community helper to suspected criminal overnight. Jamal, his cousin and a sergeant in a neighboring county, called him furious. "They're distributing this garbage publicly. That's defamation. D. You can go after them for this." Then the letter came, folded and taped to his front door. "We know what you did. Give Trevor the console, or we'll take legal action. You've been warned." It was signed shakily by Trevor. That night, Derek stared at the unopened console on his coffee table, still wrapped in plastic. He had done everything right, and now he was fighting to keep what was already his. He opened his laptop. He emailed a lawyer. The case moved faster than Derek expected. His attorney filed a cease and desist, followed by a civil complaint for defamation, harassment, and emotional distress. When the summons reached the Patsons, the tone shifted. Trevor began avoiding Derek completely. Mrs. Patson, on the other hand, doubled down, posting more flyers, claiming Derek had used connections to cover his tracks. At the court hearing, Trevor sat with slumped shoulders. never speaking. Mrs. Patson represented herself. I was only trying to protect the neighborhood. She insisted. He never provided a receipt. He did. The judge cut in. To the police, who confirmed everything. And what about the flyers? Your behavior caused reputational harm without evidence. The judge said sharply, that is not protected speech. That is libel. The ruling was swift. The Patsons were ordered to issue a public apology, pay damages for defamation, and remove every flyer. Failure to comply would escalate the charges. Mrs. Patson mumbled an apology in court. Trevor simply looked ashamed. Derek, standing with his lawyer, didn't smile, but he finally felt something like peace. A week later, Derek hosted his first game night. Jamal came over. So did Officer Collins. A couple of neighbors stopped by, curious, apologetic, or both. The PS5 sat center stage. Finally opened, finally used, and for the first time in weeks. Derek laughed, really laughed, but he hadn't forgotten. 2 weeks later, he learned from another resident that the Patsons had pulled a similar stunt in their last neighborhood. Accusations, gossip, legal pressure. It was a pattern. They used fear to get what they wanted. Until now, because Derek fought back, and the community eventually stood with him. Trevor moved out a few months later. No goodbye, no confrontation, just gone. Mrs. Patson stayed, quiet, withdrawn, watching. One morning, Derek found another note in his mailbox. Just 3 words. You ruined everything. He read it, then fed it to the shredder. Because he hadn't ruined anything. He'd reclaimed something most people forget to protect: his name, his voice, and the right to enjoy the small wins in life, like finally getting a console you worked for, and pressing play without having to explain yourself to anyone.